Servus and welcome to Flo's German Kitchen. I'm Flo, this is my kitchen, and I show you how to cook the German way. But today we're actually not cooking, we are baking bread. I'm not the only one in my family baking bread. Actually, my dad used to bake bread since I was a child. 2 years ago, I asked him to share some of his sourdough with me, and he gave me that little plastic bag that contains the dried sourdough that he's been nurturing for decades already. Now, a year ago, my dad passed away, and this was still in my refrigerator untouched, and after a while I decided, okay, I'm gonna revive this and I'm gonna revive the tradition, and I started baking bread. And speaking about traditions, I was born in Swabian, so the first bread I'm gonna bake for you is a Swabian bread called Besenlaib. It's called Besenlaib after a broom. It stands for the Besenwirtschaft. And there is a special law in Baden-Württemberg, in Swabia, that allows winemakers and farmers to open improvised restaurants for a couple of weeks a year to sell their products directly to customers and serve their products there. And that's called a Besenwirtschaft, a broom restaurant, because those farmers, those winemakers would put a broom in front of their building so that people could see, here is a Besenwirtschaft, here you can eat and drink and have fun. The bread I'm making today is a very simple but very, very tasty bread. The only thing you need is a couple of different flours, sourdough, a little fresh yeast, salt, and of course a good guzzle, well, not a guzzle, a nice little sip of Swabian Riesling. Wunderbar. Baking bread doesn't need a lot of ingredients, but it takes quite some patience, and you have to plan ahead. Depending on what kind of bread you bake, you have to plan ahead for 1, 2, maybe 3 days. So this is actually a quite quick one. It only needs planning for 1 day. Another difficulty is the flour. There is no direct equivalent to the German kinds of flour we have. So what I'm doing today is that I give you an idea about the blend of US kinds of flour so that you can get the same results as I do. So let's start. The first is 230 grams of standard wheat bread flour. In German it's 55er Weizenmehl. Then we have 220 grams of full grain white flour. And this is 50 grams of 1150 rye flour. There is no US equivalent to that, but you can take 2/3 white rye flour and 1/3 of full or whole grain white flour. That is supposed to be about the same result. Here comes the sourdough. That's 75 grams. Sourdough, or call it starter, I think. And 3 grams of fresh yeast. If you can't get fresh yeast, just take half the amount, 1.5 grams of active dry yeast. And 350 milliliters of water. That's all for now. Start kneading the dough at low speed. I let the machine work the dough for 2 to 3 minutes until it starts shaping a doughy ball. After the salt is worked in the dough, I increase the speed of the machine to about 2/3 of maximum speed and let it knead for another 10 to 12 minutes. And judging by how the table is shaking, you can see that the machine is working really hard. So after 10 minutes of trying to avoid the machine is running off the table, we're done. We have a very smooth, soft dough. And now all you do is put it in a box, in a dough box. One thing you do is that you really cover it with oil. For me, actually, I'm using a spray for that, so that it's really evenly spread. Because this is a quite sticky dough, and yeah, you don't want it to stick to the box. And now just use a scraper to get it out of the bowl, into the box. Now what you do is you let the dough rest for 30 minutes, then you stretch it and fold it, let it rest for another 30 minutes, stretch it and fold it, and let it rest for another 30 minutes. Don't forget to cover it. You don't want the surface to dry out. The first 30 minutes are over, and we start the stretching and the folding. So you can see that releases pretty well thanks to the spray. And now stretching and folding is exactly what it says. You stretch the dough, fold it to the top on all four sides. And when you do that, you already realize that it doesn't stretch as easy as with the first stretch. You just fold it up 4 times from every side. That's it. Let it rest for another 30 minutes. And if you're lucky, you have a nice glass of wine to spend the time with.
And while Flo is playing with his cat, he should have told you to keep the dough in the refrigerator for at least 12 hours and take it out 2 hours prior to the next steps.
As I said, baking bread needs planning ahead, so I've already prepared the same dough yesterday so that we continue and I don't have to split shooting in 2 halves. So next thing you do is put some flour on the table. And as you can see, this has become pretty soft, pretty fluffy, but we're gonna work on that. So, there is no more kneading. All you do is fold it up once, give it a squeeze, and then you turn it around and shape it into a nice ball. And this is about the same technique that I explained in my video about Flammkuchen, just with 2 hands, where I explained how to, in German it's called Teigschleifen. So what you want is to shape a really even ball and a ball that's got some tension on the surface. I think this is pretty well. Next thing is you put actually a lot of flour in the basket. If you don't have a bread basket like that, you can just take any kind of bowl. Now you turn it upside down and drop it in the bowl. Cover the basket or your bowl with a piece of linen and let it rest for another 40 minutes at room temperature. While the dough is resting, don't forget to heat up the oven to 250 degrees. And another thing we need is steam. To make the dough expand, we will add steam to the oven. And one way of doing that is the way I do it. I'm using a casserole with some lava stones that I put in the oven and let the stones heat up, and later on I will put some water in it so we get good steam in the oven. If you don't have that kind of stones, just take a cast, let the dough rest for another 40 minutes, and then we're back to baking bread. The dough got its 40 minutes of rest. You can see it has definitely extended in size. Now you put it on a board upside down. And one thing you shouldn't forget, this is gonna expand even more, so just take a knife and cut 3 slits in the surface so it can expand and the crust doesn't burst uncontrolled. We put it in the oven. Add the water on the stones and you can see that steams up, and the same goes if you have your cast iron pot, and you reduce the temperature to 220 centigrade. You will probably not have the same kind of oven. Nobody does, because this is no longer being manufactured. Don't worry about that. What you can do with your standard oven is you take a pizza stone and just do the same thing. Bake it for 20 minutes, including the steam. Then you open up the thing, release the steam, take out the casserole or your cast iron pot or whatever you're using to produce the steam, and then you bake it for another 45 minutes. 45 minutes are gone. The bread looks very ready. This smells wonderful. It's really tough that I have to let it cool down before I can cut it. That's because if you let it rest after it gets out of the oven, it will last longer. This bread is fantastic because I can leave it just like this, not in a box, not in the fridge, nothing. Can leave it like that for 5, 6, 7 days and it stays fresh. That's what bread is like when it's made at home, when it's made with sourdough and not a lot of yeast and all that stuff. It's a wonderful thing. I have to restrain myself. I'll wait until it's cooled down. Now let's see what we've got inside. Now that looks like bread, I'd say. Can see a bit air inside. It was definitely worthwhile to give it some time to cool down. Now let's try it. You can hear the crust. It's crusty, tasty, and the inside is soft, fluffy, just what you want. I guess I don't have to tell you how to eat bread, even if it's German bread. But there is one thing I really want to recommend with all my heart, and that is making yourself a strammer Max. That's a wonderful Bavarian snack, a hearty snack with ham and egg. And if you want to know how to prepare a strammer Max, watch the video here. Wonderful hearty snack. And if you liked my video, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment and tell all your friends about this channel. Celebrate German kitchen, celebrate German bread. Cheers on German bread. Wunderbar.